Hey folks, I did a video last week that kind of got big, and it was about a church here in Nova Scotia that was fined for continuing to congregate despite the fact that they were warned not to, and despite the fact that here in Nova Scotia, our government has put some really strict measures in place to try to protect the populace from this COVID-19 pandemic that really flared up here 4 or 5 weeks ago. Now today, now as it often happens, I was wildly inspired by some of the comments. And so today we're going to talk about freedom. We're going to do 2 videos today talking about freedom. This video in particular is going to talk about Christian freedom. What it means to be free as a Christian. Because that was one of the things that was mentioned to me on a fairly regular basis, is the government is taking away our rights to worship God. The government is going to take away our rights to be Christian. The government's going to take away our rights to pray, to read our Bible, whatever it happened to be. There was a lot of fear that our governments here in Canada, whether it's the provincial or the federal, were overstepping. And by overstepping, they were clamping down on our ability to be Christians, on our ability to be the church, whichever denomination, whichever church you happen to be. Now, I'm not going to talk about the government. I'm not going to talk about the conspiracy theories. I'm not going to talk about the fear that somebody is going to come and take away our ability to worship safely, because ultimately that's what it is, right? Nobody can take away our ability to worship God, but they can take away our ability to worship safely, without persecution, without oppression, without fear. And that is kind of what I want to talk about. You see, Jesus, when he was here, in his teachings, he never ever uttered the words, "death to tyrants." He never went so far as John the Baptist did, where John the Baptist was speaking against the Jewish leadership, not only the religious leadership, but the governance, the king, that Rome had put in place. Jesus never got into that. Jesus never talked about the Roman occupation. He never ever, at least in the Gospels, protested Roman soldiers walking through the streets. As a matter of fact, Jesus seen them as he's seen everybody else, people in need. The freedom that Jesus offers us is not freedom from the troubles of this world. It is not freedom from the governments of this world. It's not freedom from laws. It's not freedom from rules. It's not freedom from persecution. It's not freedom from oppression. The freedom that Jesus offers us does not tell us we will be safe, that we will be physically safe from harm in this world. Jesus' words tell us exactly the opposite. Jesus' words tell us exactly the opposite. You are going to face oppression in my name. You are going to face physical harm in my name. This is part of the deal. Now, here in the West, blessedly so, we are free from that. There are many places in the world where Christians are oppressed, and whether it's from the government or from the populace, Christians are physically oppressed, physically harmed. The church has gone deep underground. And this isn't an uncommon thing in the Christian history. The Christian church grew underground at first. Everybody hated Christians. The Jewish people hated Christians. The Gentiles hated Christians. The Romans hated Christians. The Christian church, through its history, has been a church that has seen exceptional growth through persecution. Not in the absence of persecution, when persecution has been present. Recently, the Christian Broadcasting Network on their website, I'll include a link to it in the comments. This isn't a website that I would find myself in agreement many times. But they recently released a report. And that report was a peer-reviewed report that said Christian churches are growing faster in persecuting nations right now. The Christian faith grows faster in nations where the church faces persecution than it does in places where we are free to worship in our way. And this is why I'm not worried about somebody coming down and saying, you're going to stop doing what you're doing. I'm not worried about it because Jesus tells us it's going to happen. I'm not worried about it because throughout our history as Christians, when it has happened, the gospel has found a way to flourish. When it has happened, God has been given glory. God has been seen as powerful. God has been seen as unrelenting. God has been seen as unconquerable. And that was through the efforts, and through the lives, and sadly through the suffering of Christians. I'm not worried about the government coming in and saying, that's it, you're done with worship. We're taking your freedom of worship away. We're taking away that one basic right from you. I'm not. Because if it happens, I already know the result. I may suffer. My family may suffer. My congregation may suffer. But the gospel will be proclaimed powerfully. The church will be strengthened powerfully, encouraged miraculously. As a follower of Christ, I know that I'm not supposed to feel, not supposed to be safe. That this Christian journey was never, ever promised to be one filled with rainbows and unicorns. Blessed are those who are persecuted in my name. We follow a guy who died on the cross for the world. The path we walk, it leads to Calvary. Because it's only through Calvary that the faith is truly found. If you're worried about persecution, I'm sorry. It's part of the contract. If you're worried that the government is going to come and shut you down, as a servant of Christ, recognize what this actually means. It means God's about to do something truly powerful. And not through the laws, not through the rules, not through government policy. God's going to do something truly powerful, not by protecting us from this harm, protecting us from this oppression. God's going to do something truly powerful through the oppression, through those oppressive laws. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that we recognize these rights and freedoms that we have here in this world, physically. They've been given to us by physical powers. They can be taken away. But the freedom that Jesus offers, the freedom from sin and death, the freedom that we find in loving our neighbors, the freedom that we find in a relationship with God through Christ, nobody can take that away from you. Amen.